Welcome back YouTube, Harry here, known as Trade Sharp, and this is going to be an interesting video. It's not going to be too long, but we're going to talk about basically a part 2 to my change of character, which is a very interesting video. If you haven't watched part 1, I'll link it up. You can understand what is change of character, but in this video we're also going to cover basically trading ranges, because coming into the second quarter now, we're seeing a bit of the market's range, and I want to discuss and kind of tell you guys what's my approach to trading ranges, and what not I advise, but basically what I do when I trade ranges, because of course all of this is not financial advice. And yeah, so it's going to be a good video. We're going to cover a bit more in depth about change of character, especially how it can be applied in ranges. So definitely advise you to watch this full video. And that being said, let's get straight into it. So as always guys, can you help the YouTube algorithm and do the YouTube business by hitting that like and subscribe? I can't tell you how much it helps get the video out to more people who can benefit from this free content that I put out weekly. So if you guys can do that, will be great, and I'd really appreciate if we can run this video up to 100+ likes, because that would be really perfect. And leave your comments down below so I can reply to them. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to join the group and ask any questions there, and I'll see if I can answer them. So that being said, let's get into this video here. So we're going to use pound yen because that's what I mostly trade in London session, and it's an easy example. So of course, as you can see here, on a 15-minute time frame, from the start of the week, we've been basically ranging. We range here, had a breakout, and then continued to range. Now, the interesting thing here is that when you're in a range, which we can define by having range highs here, and you can define by having a range low here, because we're not going to take this lowest point here, because this is basically a couple of fake outs retesting from this zone here. So the most tested zone is here, here. You can see how many times the zone has been tested, which is around 161,648. So around that zone, this is your range here. Now, many people, if you're a beginner, I would advise you just not to trade a range, because it can be complicated and you can get stuck in this range here and lose a lot of money, to be honest, right? And it's not the easiest thing, and it's easier once you've seen it. So now we're going over it basically at the end of the week, once we've seen price action form in the range. So it's always easier to discuss than when you're actually live at the chart. So always consider that. But there is a possible way to trade ranges, and there could be a few easy trades in the range, right? So basically, when you're in a range, you have to make sure it's tradable. So this is a 62 pip range, which I would consider tradable for sure, and you can look to take trades within this range. Now, the most important thing is, when you're trading a range, you want to know the overall trend, right? So is the trend bullish or bearish? So looking at the daily time frames, we have not had one daily bearish closure during this week, except for at the end of the week here, closing a bit as a doji here. But you can see bullish, bullish, bullish. So if we're closing all candles bullish, we should not be looking for sells within this range, because there's a higher probability that we'll continue up than continue down. But selling in the range does work if you understand where we are, because we are at daily resistance. So selling around this zone when the range is established will make sense to test the bottom of the range. But if you're coming to the session, right, and this is where people are gonna get messed up. If you're coming to the session and price is somewhere here, you should not be selling to try get to here. That's going to be very, very bad idea. And that's because we are going up in the market. So if your better chances are trying to buy, take profit at the top of the range, and if you're lucky, which is like a gamble, you'll get continuation. But really, when you're in a range, you either have to wait for the breakout, or you have to just be happy with taking profits at the top of the range. So things made simple is, you are basically looking to buy from the bottom of the range and sell at the top of the range. That's basically how you trade a range. But it's a bit more complicated than that, and this is where change of character becomes very, very useful, because if you're looking to sell from the top of the range when we're going up on the daily time frame, you have to be very careful that you don't get the one that breaks out and then you lose the trade. So now we're going to dive into selling from the top of the range, then we'll go to the more basic buying from the bottom of the range, which is really quite simple, to be honest. So first of all, we need to establish the range. So basically, after 2 tests of this range, where we can see we've had 1 test here and 1 test here, now we can start to look for this test here. Sorry, let me just make that more clear for you guys. So 1 test here. Now we've established we're in a range, and you can see our price action is kind of now ranging. So Now what we can look for is if we understand that this area here is daily resistance, that we can understand if we're not trading above and creating support above this zone, we're not going to be going up because we're at daily resistance, right? So that's what's very important. Now what we need to look for is if we see a bearish closure at the top of the range, for example, this closure right here. So this trade you wouldn't take because the range wasn't established, but this next option here, where we see, okay, fine, we get the bearish closure at the top of the range, which is this candle here, which we will go back test something like this. So we're at the charts at this point and we're like, okay, great, this pushed up, we've tapped target exactly because that's where you're targeting if you got the buys from the bottom of the range, which is also how you trade from the bottom of the range. And now you say, okay, now we're at the top of the range, we can look for sells. But taking a sell on this candle, bearish candle like this after this rejection, is going to be a very, very, very bad idea, because easily what you can get is you could get one more test like this and then come back down. So what you need to see is you need to see a change of character. So what I mean by change of character is on basically on lower time frames it look like something like this, and then we see a change of character. So this is also a change of structure, but the more popular YouTube term is they call it change of character. But on the 15 minutes it's very easy to see, especially when you know price action. And when you know price action, you can basically see here, if we go next candle here, price, okay, creates a support. So you know if price is breaking this support or just closing below the support, high chances you're gonna come and test the bottom of the range. But remember, it has to respect these highs. So this is the chance where you see the change of character. So price is trying to push up to the upside. If it's gonna break down, this is where it changes character, and you go next candle, and that's where the breakdown. Now if you're more impulsive, based on this data here, where you can see, okay, broke the low and continued, you can take it as it breaks the low, because it's the exact same setup here. You see price comes up, fails, change of character, closes below. If you're less confident, there's no harm in taking it once you get the closure after the change of character, because remember guys, on lower time frames this support here will be a support. So if we're breaking this support on lower time frames, we're breaking the support towards the downside, which is going to be your change of character. And that's the only option when you can take sells from the bottom of the range to target the lows. Now this is something where you have to be very careful, testing structure within the range, right? So testing structure in the range is where you have to be very careful here. And this is where trading in the range can be messed up, because everyone will be targeting the bottom of the range, which does make sense. But remember, price is going to react off the recent structure it has. So you have to keep this structure in mind here. And if you don't adjust your stops, then you know you're going to be in big trouble. But this was just a reaction, and eventually it should come to the bottom of the range, which we see here. So we eventually hit the bottom of the range, but this is where in the middle of the range, always trading in the middle of the range, you'll find issues. You see issues here, issues here, issues here, and now issues here. So let's go forward and see now, looking for buys, right? Because now we're at the bottom of the range, we can look for buys. So for buys, pretty simple. Look for a higher time frame close, support, because we're going bullish in the market. So supports should be easy to continue up. So I'm going to wait for a 30-minute bullish close. That's your 30-minute bullish close. And this is where you take a position towards the upside. Where you're going to target. You're not going to target here. No, you target your most recent structure here. That's a 30 pip move. And you see if you get that move towards your target. And you do. And that's the trade done. And that's how you're trading a range here. You see. So you wait for a higher time frame support to form at the bottom of the range. Now we're back at the top of the range. What do we have to look for? We have to look for change of character. So do we see change of character? Here's your bearish closure. We need a change of character. Here's a bullish closure. If we break the lows here, we will target this point here, right? Which is the lows. Your stops will go here. So do we break the lows? No, we respect the lows. Still respecting the lows. Still respecting the lows. And now the trade is different because we had this move. So now stops will have to be up here, which is not really worth the risk to reward. And we're basically creating a range. But you see, until we broke the lows, there was no change of character, and price continued to the top of the range. Now we're back at the top of the range. This gave you no option because this is, okay, you know, this is no confluence here. You need the change of character. Yes, this was a great move, but you don't know if this could have created support, right? So again, now you could have taken that trade back up again to the top of the range, you know, Now, people will ask, why didn't you take the trade here? Remember, we're in the middle of the range here. Well, this is the middle. You don't want to play in the middle of the range. You only want to play at the top and the bottom. And that's basically how you play a range. And you can see how that was the trade all week. Now, it is easier to see now that the trades are all done, but it's something that you have to go over and get used to. Luckily, you know, not all the time do we get huge ranges on GJ. We normally break out, so we don't have to deal with this. If you look at, especially in these high volume months, you know, we don't get as a big range as this. So sometimes trading in ranges in GJ, you tend to not want to trade in ranges because you know the move outside the range will be a lot better and bigger. So that's why I was not pressured to try force trades in this range. But other than that, that's how you basically train the range, and I hope that video helps. And let me know if you guys enjoyed that video. Kept it short, easy, and simple, and hopefully it can help you with some of the other pairs, because I'm sure some other pairs must have been, yeah, some range here. We've had GU broke out, Euro USD, a little bit of range here. So that was the trade all week, basically. You see, you can buy one, buy two, buy three. What other pairs do people trade? I think AU people like to trade. Yeah, like this type of range, you don't want to trade this type of range. Wait for a breakout, right? So yeah, that's basically it. Hope this helps. Take care, guys. Trade sharp. Until next time. Peace.